I'm going to talk about something that I think is very, very important as a writer. Am I making any sense? I think as a writer, that's your primary function. I see a lot of writers at times, they get bothered because the reader is not getting it. But for me, I think that's kind of part of my job, is to make the reader get it. Just because I have an idea in my head, it's not a given that I'm going to be able to type a few sentences out and instantly this is going to form coherently the idea that I want it to in whoever reads this. So that's something that I have to work a lot on. And the best way I can choose to describe it is, if I'm writing and I'm trying to create for you the impression of a square, and then I give you my book, my manuscript or whatever, and you read it and you come back to me like, man, Chris, that is the best description of a circle that I've ever read. Well, even if you liked it, then clearly I have still failed in some manner, because my intent was to make you picture a square, yet you somehow pictured a circle. So I need to go back and look at what I did. I've been pretty fortunate. Basically, when I write, specifically after my first book, Rosehaven, my books start to get just pretty crazy. Rosehaven was a very coherent line of a story. You start to see in Ghosts of Glass and my later works, I start to jump around a lot. So when you start breaking things up that much and going in that many different directions, you do have to ask yourself, am I making any sense here? Is this anything? Is it just jumble? Is it just rambling? And so what I've started to do since Ghosts of Glass is I send my manuscript to at least 2 different people. It tends to be that I let one person read it as I'm going through the process, and they give me their thoughts and they give me their feedback. Is it all coming together? Do they understand what I said in chapter 1 compared to chapter 2? And then I like to have somebody who I leave in the dark completely about what the story is, and when it's finished, just drop it on them. Now, in stories, you find basically 2 types of errors that are concerns to me. And again, I kind of label them based on my days in computer programming as experience. And there's basically, in computer programming, there's what's called a syntax error, and then there's one called a logic error. Now, syntax errors are great, because basically a syntax error in a program is the equivalent of forgetting to end a sentence with a period, or not starting a sentence with a capital letter, misspellings. Those are really easy to track down. What a logic error is after you've written this gigantic program and you want it to calculate the tax of sales, and you run some figures through it, and all of a sudden what it gives you is the colors of the rainbow. And you're like, why is it doing this? It's working, it's giving me something, but it's not giving me what I want. And so you have to go back in the program and you have to look at the process that you went through, and you have to figure out, where did I make a mistake? Why is this not flowing like it should? Why is this not giving me the output that I want? And that's a lot more challenging. That's a lot more time consuming. Because everything's right, it's just done wrong. So when I give somebody a book, a manuscript, and I ask them to look at it, there's always that underlying fear where they're going to say, well, how come in chapter 12 you said this, this, and this, when previously in chapter 5 you said this, this, and this? That doesn't make any sense. And if you're not careful, that can completely tear apart the whole story. So logic errors are the biggest challenge. And so when I go through my process of writing, I'm lucky to have somebody who's reading it as the process is going. And then that final person I give it to, they're the person that I'm hoping can help me make sure it's all logical. Make sure it all makes sense. That they don't have any questions where they come back to me and like, I don't get why this character did this when in this previous chapter you said they would not do this. So that's part of my job, I guess, part of what I'm trying to always do, is I need to make sure that when I sit down to write, that on some level it is making sense to whoever is giving up their time, because I mean that's a gift, whoever is giving up their time and money to actually read it, and hopefully they're getting the ideas that I'm trying to express.